Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise and speak on this bill, and I'll join in the love fest when it comes to Simon Power and his role in bringing this bill to the House. I think the Minister deserves credit for having drawn together this, the work that's gone in to making this bill come forward, and as other speakers have noted, it is a bill that has widespread support among those who are interested in this issue, and that's saying quite something, because during the debate around Section 92A it was clear that there was a great diversity of opinion, and some of it very, very strongly expressed. If I can just briefly go back to Section 92A, whilst it became extremely controversial, it was based on the belief that the issue of addressing copyright infringement and copyright abuse was an important issue, and the one that needed to have serious consequences for those who did actually infringe copyright. And it was also based on the view that we could come to a negotiated solution about that. And on that note, I do want to credit the role of the Telecommunication Carriers Forum and Ralph Chivers from that group. He's no longer with them. He works for another large telecommunications organisation now. But Mr Chivers and his group attempted to bring together some consensus on this. And a lot of people were involved in that, the rights holders, the ISPs and consumer reps. And significant progress was made towards a negotiated solution. What happened, however, was that people became very concerned, obviously, about the issue of the termination of accounts, and that in the end it wasn't possible to come to that agreement. Taken away from the pressure of that negotiation, taken out, put into a different process, which, as I say, Mr Power has led, there has now been a process that has been agreed on, and that is a good thing. But I think the goal of Section 92A is in fact the goal that people have been speaking about today. People want to make sure right across New Zealand that our artists and our musicians have the ability to make money from their craft. They have the ability to know that there is a regime in place that should people abuse that, they will be brought to account. And then on the other side of the coin, that those who are using the internet, which as many people have said today, is a brave new world that we can't control in the way that other things, other platforms may have been able to have been controlled in the past. Those people who use the internet need to be able to know that their rights will be protected as well. So I think credit is due to all of the stakeholders who've been involved in this process up to now. Mr Speaker, a number of people have already spoken around what the bill actually does. I think it is important to note that there is the 3 strikes or the 3 warnings process, a detection notice followed by a warning notice should the internet subscriber be accused of infringing copyright again. I think those 2 notices are very important because for me one of the most important parts of this whole bill is the notion of the education of people who are involved in illegal file sharing. And it's quite clear, Mr Hughes has spoken about it and others, there is a whole generation of people who aren't even aware that what they are doing is illegal. There's a generation of people for whom if something is on the internet, it is theirs. It's there, they can use it. And we do need to work very hard to build up the education of those in, particularly of a younger age, about the fact that this is something that belongs to somebody. This is actually something that ensures the livelihood of our musicians and artists, the people whose work they appreciate so much, they're going after it and trying to find it. It is important that those people understand that, and I think a 3-stage process is a useful way of doing that. The 3rd stage of the process is the enforcement notice, which, as others have said, could see people being fined up to $15,000 or having their internet disconnected for up to 6 months. And obviously the process now also includes the ability for those who have been accused and feel that that is unjust to go to the Copyright Tribunal at no cost. And that's important as well. That's the second set of rights, Mr Speaker, that I was talking about before. Not just those who hold the copyright, but also those who perhaps feel they've been unfairly targeted. So I think that's a good balance. As previous speakers have said, from the Labour Party's point of view, we do have concerns about the disconnection, and I won't go back into all of the details of those, but that's something I think at the Select Committee there will be a number of submissions on. People are particularly concerned about what that would mean. My particular concern about it is this. It's not going to work in terms of discouraging people from illegal file sharing, because as a number of other speakers have noted, people will simply go and sign up to another account. Many people have multiple accounts already. That's simply the nature of how people use and access the internet. And what I think we want to work towards here are mechanisms that will actually work in just terms of discouraging people from illegal file sharing. And I think those education notices, a process where people see the consequence coming towards them, that will stop people at different stages of that process. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that there will be some people, some organisations perhaps, who won't stop because this is actually what they're doing, and it's illegal, it's criminal activity, and those people will continue to have to be looked after in other ways and followed up in other ways. What I really want to make clear, Mr. Speaker, is to lay down on the record Labor's support for the music and creative industries in New Zealand. And I think anyone looking back on the record of the fifth Labor government would have to acknowledge that Labor did a great deal to enhance the ability of musicians and artists in New Zealand to make a living. And last night we had the 21st birthday function of New Zealand on air in the banquet hall of the Beehive, and the graph went up on the screen there of the amount of music, New Zealand music, played on commercial radio. And that's 20% and has been consistently around the 20% figure for the last few years. That is a direct result of the code of practice that was brought in between commercial radio and the government under the fifth Labor government, and that was an important part of ensuring that that music is heard. Also, the creation of the New Zealand Music Industry Commission that's helped promote New Zealand musicians overseas, given them the ability to break into new markets and make sure that their product is heard across the world. And the ongoing work that the cultural recovery package that Helen Clark oversaw coming in, that has all contributed to New Zealand musicians and New Zealand artists being able to make their way in the world. So Labor stands beside those musicians and artists. In terms of copyright, we stand beside them in acknowledging that copyright is the means by which creators, such as composers and songwriters, make a living from their work. And we will stand up and protect that right and the enforcement of those rights. And the law that is in front of us today will help with that. We certainly have concerns about it, but it will help with that. But what we have to do is provide a mechanism that works, a mechanism that will actually discourage people from file sharing, and we need to ensure that we work on measures in this bill that work, and as I say, we have concerns about whether the disconnection process will actually work. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to delay the House much more. I do just want to note that we do have a couple of other concerns about the bill, in particular the fact that many of the details within this bill are left to regulations, and I draw members' attention to Part 2 of the bill, and in particular Section 10 around regulations. And there's a lot of confusion about what the actual fee that will be payable by copyright owners for applications to the tribunal will be. And I think in the select committee process we need to ensure that we get a lot more specificity around that particular part of the bill. We really do want to make sure that there is clarity here. I think a good job has been done by the Minister in ensuring that we have a bill that we can discuss. The Select Committee process is now the chance for all those involved, rights holders, the ISPs, consumers, to put down any further concerns that they have and ensure that we have a law that is workable for everyone, but in particular protects our musicians and our artists' ability to make a living from their work, and that is the area that I personally am most interested in, and those are the people that I will be standing up for as this bill goes through the House.
Melissa Lee.